So I think our journeys are different, right? So leadership isn't like I showed up one day and applied for a job and said, "Hey, I want to be a leader." It really starts with your own experiences
Yep.
and just being passionate about something and wanting to do something, and then you notice that other people start to listen to you or come and ask you for advice. And that was really like the trigger of leader. Like I never really thought about I'm a leader, and then took that mindset and approached it that way. So Scott, I wanted to ask you, kind of what was your journey like, in the sense that, um, you know, your evolution of the process of becoming a leader. Like, when did you start realizing that for yourself?
I think it was in high school. I was a football player, basketball player. My sophomore year, I tore my knee up, tore every ligament in the knee up that you could imagine. And, that took away something that I loved. I didn't know what to do without being able to play sports. So I found myself on the sidelines, and but I still wanted to have an impact. So I still went to every single practice, um, sat in every single meeting, anything I could be a part of. I wanted to be with the guys and be a part of it. And then I started jumping on people for better or less. Pointing out things that they were doing really well, and then finding things that they weren't doing so well, and finding ways of communicating with them. And then they would come back and give me feedback, like the things that I was saying to them or um, pointing out were having value to them. And then the coach is at that time, we're starting to see that as well. And then they kind of started pointing out, you are a natural leader. And up until that point, I was I'd gone through a lot of things in my life, whether my parents were divorced when I was age 12. I was living with my dad, then I got forced to move with my mom. So I was going back and forth and switching schools, new to high school, all that stuff. So my freshman year up until that point of the injury, it was just sports, but I really was in this shell. I think we're all lost at that age, at 14, 15, especially boys. But then going through all that stuff, I was lost, and really in a shell and afraid to come out and that sort of thing. But I think that was a blessing, me tearing up my knee. It kind of helped me discover who I was and find my voice and get a little bit more vocal and demonstrative and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And then I've kind of carried that.
no, it's funny, or interesting, I should say, that you just said all that, because for me, my dad was in the Air Force and we moved around a lot, and every time we moved to a new city, it was like it took me a while to really connect with people and then make friends, and then we would up and leave and move again. And when my parents divorced, and I was age 12, we moved from San Antonio. My mom and my brother and I moved from San Antonio to back to Phoenix, where we'd previously been at one stage in the journey, because my mom's family's from Arizona. So we moved back to Phoenix, and I made the decision that I wanted a fresh start. I knew that we weren't going to be moving anymore, because
Mhm.
we were disconnected from that military life, and I felt like I'm just going to be who I want to be and go for it, because nobody knows me. There's no judgment. And these are the things that we play in our head, right?
Yep,
And I'm and,
absolutely.
and I'm not, I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, but these are the things that we tell ourselves over and over. And I think that we go through life with carrying the expectations of others. And here I found myself in a new city with no expectations, and I thought, I'm just going to be me. And you had a coach reach out to you and tell you, Scott, you're a natural born leader. These people are listening to you, they're improving, it's great, keep it up. And so the coach is giving you that encouragement. And it was something similar for me. I remember I was in science class, And the teacher said to me, "Hey, the student government elections are coming up. Are you going to run for class president?" And I looked at him like, "Are you kidding? I mean, that's crazy. That's really me, class president." I'd only been in the city for a year and a half, and he's like, "Jason, I see people follow your lead. You're a natural, and I think
Mhm.
I think you would find value in it." And so I was like, "Sure, whatever." And I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved being engaged with people and making things happen and encouraging. And it just went from there.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were that into student government. I cracked the yearbook last night and did all my homework and all that other stuff, among other things. Yeah, and that's one of the things looking back that I wish I would have gotten into. Again, I was not comfortable until, sophomore, junior year, and you were much bolder than I. You hopped right in and somebody got to you earlier. But yeah, I think that's invaluable. I've tried to kind of tell my kids, try and instill some of those traits, but student government, and if you get involved and be a part of something and want to take ownership, have a vested interest in it. I think, you're that much more successful at that than you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I mean, I know that you're a big sports guy. I mean, you're a couple of years older than me. My freshman year, you and my brother were seniors, and so I got to kind of see and follow his lead and being a military brat. He was my best friend. I mean, he was my only friend sometimes, right? And so
Yeah.
I got to meet a lot of his friends and hang out and hear and be inspired. And being in sports, as you were, is also, I mean, it's this team, right? Literally a team, and there's a goal and a vision. And I think with leadership, not just about that coaching piece, but it's about having the same and keeping people focused on a vision. um, and so, Scott, when you graduated high school, you went off to college, and talk about kind of your career advancement with leadership.
Yeah, straight out of high school, I went, and started the junior college route, and then I found my way to Arizona State. At the same time, I was, working full time. Much like you, I got in the workforce very early, whether it was bagging groceries or working at a restaurant or whatever it was. And I was also coaching the freshman basketball team back at our old high school. Straight out of high school, I asked, Coach Rossi, I'll say his name, we can say his name,
Yeah, yeah.
if I could come back and coach. I wanted to be a part of it. And I loved watching some of the things he was doing. I wanted to love the sport and wanted to be a part of it. And it was unique. I was coaching the freshman team. I did that 3 years directly out of high school. So I was going to school full time. I was coaching, a team full time, and then I was working full time. So I was putting in the effort. Um, and then I finally got a job at in operations at a communications company. And one of those things Dwayne Johnson says all the time is hardest worker in the room. And I've always believed, the hard work pays off. You're the hardest worker in the room. It's going to pay off for you. Somebody's going to see it and take notice of it, and that's going to open other opportunities for you. And age 20, I got an opportunity, a leadership role at the company communications job I was at. And I've kind of been in leadership ever since. My wife, I met her, I was at Arizona State studying communications. She was at Grand Canyon University in Phoenix there. And we dated for 5 years. And when she was done with school, she was basically, Arizona's too hot for me. We're moving back to Texas. I've got connections back there. I think I can get a job immediately. So, we can either, pack our stuff, head back to Texas and get married, or I'll see you later. So I packed up what little things I had and moved to Texas. And then I have kind of been in, I found another job, got a leadership job very early on when we moved out here, and then kind of gone from position to position, but I've been in healthcare pretty much the last 20 years. And currently I'm finding myself, I manage pharmacy technicians and pharmacists and that sort of thing. And I don't know anything about any of that stuff. All I know is I'm an operations guy, kind of try and point out what makes sense, look at our processes and procedures, drive to goals, look for ways we get better and that sort of thing. And I think, one of my strongest suits is knowing what I don't know and trying to surround myself with people that do know what I don't know and can kind of point me in the direction. I think you really have to build a trust tree around you of people you can really trust and endure yourself with and are going to go to bat for you and that sort of thing and help, lead you in the right direction, that sort of thing. So I've been doing it for a long time, and just the working with people and that sort of thing, I love it. And one of the big things I hear in your podcast, as I listen a lot, is one of the words that continues to stick out is passion and that sort of thing. And I'm passionate about leadership. I'm passionate about people and driving to goals and end results and that sort of thing, and helping people reach those things. And that's one of the things I said, I'm not an expert on everything, but what I am really good at, again, is, motivating. And if there's roadblocks in the way, I'm not afraid to go after, somebody that's standing in the way and find a way to work our way through those roadblocks. And, I will fight for my people, and I hope they'll fight for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. As leaders, people sometimes think that you have all the answers, and it's not having the answers, because you said it's not knowing what you, or knowing what you don't know. And that's the truth. It's not having the answers, but it's having the knowledge that you can work through something.
Yep.
And it's that inspiration, that coaching, inspiring, encouraging. That's the difference between a manager and a leader. Managers,
Yeah.
schedule things or tell people what to do. Leaders inspire people to work through and to get better,
Yeah.
and to be better versions of ourselves. And I think that, there's some buzzwords that over the last couple of years, CX, the customer experience, EQ, emotional intelligence, humanity, I believe, is the hottest commodity out there, like the biggest commodity out there, because technology is something that we develop, but it doesn't, you can apply technology to things, but it doesn't account for stuff that comes up. I mean, algorithms, yeah, it's getting way better. I mean, artificial
Yep.
intelligence is just mind blowing. And I'm not here to talk about artificial intelligence, but having the ability to read a room or find a situation, I think that and on my journey with leadership, sometimes I think it was frustrating for people around me because it's like they would come to me and ask me for the answer. And I said, I don't know, but let's go see what the situation is. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can see what's happening and you have that vision to be able to navigate what's occurring and then inspire others to be able to navigate, then that's really something special. And
Yeah.
I know in my life, and I'll give an example. My first job as a general manager, my one of my technicians would come in and ask me a question, and I would give him the answer, and he would go back, and then he would come and ask me the next day, or a day later, whatever, ask me a similar question, and I'd give him the answer and go back. So it took me a while to understand that I wasn't helping him. And so I
Yeah.
started answering his questions with questions. And then he would start to solve his own problem. And we'd have this dialogue, and he would go, okay, I get it. I've got that skill set. I just need to tap into it. And he would leave and go handle the problem. And then he would come back, and he would get halfway through his question and then just turn around and leave. Like, he solved his own problem by asking me the question. And then he would come back and not say anything and just turn around and leave. And then I just stopped seeing him.
Yep.
you
Yep.
know,
My my wife's in education, and she she's tremendous at it. And one of the things, I'm surrounded by educators. My best friends are all educators. My wife's in education. Her friends are all educators for the most part. And really early on, I would talk to her about things, and she's really good about, and she was much better than I very early on about not just giving answers, right? Like you were doing, what were they learning? They were coming to you, you were providing the answer. And basically what you're teaching there is, anytime you have a question, don't think through it, go to Jason for an answer. And I think, she taught me very early, start asking questions. And then even when they find those answers, go back to them and find out, how did they get their answer? What process did they go through? Did they use their resources? Did they go out to another colleague? Did they shortcut in going to get their answer? Did they just reach out to somebody else to get the answer? And are they sure that's right? Or did they use the resources? Did they think through it? Did they read a process and procedure, whatever it was? And I think that's beneficial. I've taught my leaders as well the same mindset, right? And if you teach them one time, and again, I think that's one of the things you brought up, technology, and I think we're kind of trapped in right now is, how we're communicating, right? It's so easy for somebody to ask a question through email now and to fire off an answer, because we're just sitting there working through email all day and we're trying to get them out of there. But if somebody's asking you a question or needing to know how to do something, are we actually showing them anymore, right? Especially in this virtual age, or are you getting on a Zoom or a WebEx or whatever it is and taking them into something and showing them how you're reaching those decision points versus just firing an email saying, do this. I think it's a trap we got to continue to work through. And I've tried to push my leaders, like we can't manage through email. You can't just send emails back and forth and hope for a good end result, right? You've got to have that one-on-one time with your people, and kind of see. And also on that, technology thing, you made me think, I, as well, through the COVID thing, even before that, we were big on, because we're all over the nation, that sort of thing. I've got employees all over the place. And when I met with other departments, we would get on a WebEx and I would be the only one to turn my camera on. And people would message me on the side and say, do you know your camera's on? I was like, yeah, I know it's on. They're like, oh, okay, we didn't want you to eat or do this, do that while the camera's on. I was like, no, I've got it on because I want you to see, if you're making me happy, I want you to see that I'm happy. And if you're pissing me off, I want you to see that you're pissing me off. And now, my whole organization, if they get on a, meeting with me, they're have cameras on and that sort of thing. And it's kind of spread throughout my leaders, throughout their organization, are doing the same thing. So I think that personal connection, we've got all these ways of communicating now, these technologies to do things. And, we've got to take advantage of it. I was also thinking, through the awesome thing about your podcast is that, you're communicating, you're saying something meaningful. Right now, we have so many different ways of communicating with one another, right? We've got phone and text and email and social media and Zoom like we're on now, but not everyone's saying anything, right? They're posting memes and they're posting pictures and that sort of thing, but are they saying anything of meaning to anyone? Are any meaningful conversations happening? And that's one of the things I try and do, through work and also on social media, is try and have some meaningful discussion and not be afraid to put yourself out there and say some things immediate, that have some meaning and may touch some people, or, at least open their thinking up a little bit. So, I really appreciate that you say some things that, and actually put some thoughts out there, put some emotions out there. You talked about a lot about love and that sort of thing on the podcast. And I was like, our generations before us probably would not have been real open to saying love and this and that and the other. And I think we do. And then I think, unfortunately, the generations that are following us are going to fall in the trap. They're not going to say it, because now everything you say and do on social media or whatever is held against you because it's misinterpreted, and or you use the wrong language and somebody takes it the wrong way. So it's kind of shameful, but you know, listening to your podcast, I really appreciate the openness and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've Scott, I've gosh, man, I've always felt in my heart and wanted to do things, but always you get that sense of uh you start analyzing, well, how is this going to be perceived? Because you're right, the generation before us didn't really talk about love so much, and the generation after us is so disconnected from that human connection because everything is quick tags,
Yep.
posts,
Yep.
memes. I mean, we're communicate with emojis for Christ's sake.
I know.
And
Yeah.
I recently, so I've always felt that way. And then I recently discovered a podcast called Unconventional Leaders. And I'm just going to say her name, Heather Parody. And she just says what's on her mind. And it's inspired me to start doing that. And so, you know, I used to post things like, I want to teach somebody something or give them a bit of knowledge or information. And so now I've started to, when I have thoughts, I put thought provoking posts like, what do you think? Because I want, you mentioned the heart and love, and we've grown up with mindset, and some of us have been fortunate enough to have people in our lives to help us understand that the mind is limitless. Like we can, I've mentioned in a previous episode that my dad asked me at a young age, what do I want to do in life? And I think it was, the space program was really big in the early 80s, and so I said something like, I want to be an astronaut, and I'll go to the Air Force Academy because that's what I knew, being in the military, as a military brat, be a pilot first. And so I had it planned out, right? That's what I wanted to do. And my dad said, you can do anything you want to do. You just have to put the work in. If somebody else can do something, then you can do it, whether it's
Yep.
be a basketball player or be a doctor, or if you want to, build fences,
Hmm.
whatever it is you want to do, just that's, you can do it. You just have to put your mind in it, and focus, put the work in. And that, the mindset, navigate, I think the mindset navigates our path for us, but our heart gets us there. And once
Yep.
we, it's like climbing a mountain. You feel like you want to give up, you feel tired, you might fall down and scrape your knee or get bump into a cactus. There's all these things in life that are going to tell you no, and your
Hmm.
heart gets you to that next step, and gets you to the next step. And our mind helps us navigate. You see a cactus, to veer away and not walk into it, right?
Right.
You only
Right.
walk into so many cactuses, cacti.
It only takes once in
Right.
Arizona, and you're not going back. Yep.
Right. So so I started to think, well, I've always let my heart guide me, so I'm going to talk about it. I want to talk about it because I think people need to hear more of that.
Yep.
And 2020, I think, did a bunch of that for us, kind of, in a sense, where it really, we get so busy in life, and there's all these things, and I use that word busy, right? Busy is not
Mm.
necessarily productive, but
Right.
we're busy, right? And I've
Yes.
tried to, in my professional life, I've tried to stop using the word busy at work. Like if somebody says, "Oh, how are things going?" Oh, it's busy. Well, what does that
Busy.
mean? I mean, are you running in circles? Are you, what are you doing? It's keeping you busy. And so, but I think that life is like that. We get pulled from one moment to the next moment to the next moment because different factors come into play, whether it's a customer, whether it's our boss, whether it's a piece of equipment breaks down, the technology stops working. All these things create this hecticness in our life. In 2020 just kind of stopped a lot of that, and we were able to literally focus on our home. I mean,
Yep.
I mentioned it before, and these hardware stores, Home Depot, Lowe's. I mean, they probably had record years.
Oh,
And
my lawns never look better. So yeah, it's
I know
yeah.
that, I've been going into the office every day, but I've also, we've done some projects around the house and stuff like that. But it's really been a time that, people are internalizing things. And I want people to know that that's normal. I mean, we
Mhm.
all internalize things. As leaders, we don't know everything. And you mentioned earlier that as a leader, I heard you say it's really about finding people that know things, because we all have our strengths. And you can break it down to a basketball team, your point guard, your center, your forward,
Yep.
your power forward. I mean, everybody has a skill set that's a little bit better than their weakness.
Yep.
And when you find those people, it's about encouraging them to know that they have these abilities and to believe in themselves and go forward. And guess what? You're going to fall down. You're going to crash. You're going to hit your head. You're going to make a mistake. But understanding what happened is what causes us to grow, and
Yep.
then we become better. Like you said, you only run into a cactus one time
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
you start to realize and see all the cacti around you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think yeah, and I think leadership. I think surrounding yourself with people you can trust and that sort of thing, and everybody's going to play a part in your team, your organization, that sort of thing. I think there's room for the subject matter experts. There's room for the people that just want to come in to work each day, get their 40 hours in, do their job and do it well. And that's all they want. And they're comfortable in that. And if that's them, that's great. There's the managers or bus drivers that, they're going to manage the team, make sure everyone's showing up and, kind of holding them responsible. And then I think, a leader is completely different than all those things because you've got to, you know, pull all those things together and get them motivated and moving towards one goal and keep, the reassuring and that sort of thing. I think also leaders are bold enough to go out and change. They're willing to put themselves out there and let the organization know what's happened. I could be faulted for being too honest with my organization sometimes. I try and tell them exactly where we are, where we're going, and what my goals are down the road. And I try to not pull any punches, be honest with them and give them insight into why we're doing what we're doing as much as I can. There's certain things you kind of have to hold on to a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think it's important that you're honest, especially with the leaders that you're serving, to kind of give them insight into what your thought process is and why you're going down the path you are. I also think, it's important not to surround yourself with people that are going to agree with everything that you say.
Yeah.
I like some controlled friction in the room and kind of have debate. And, I think it sharpens our skill set if we're able to defend our thinking with people that question it. It makes you dive into why you're thinking that way and defend it versus, I don't want to just surround myself with a bunch of people that are going to go along with everything I say. I may not, again, since I don't know everything, I may not know what the hell I'm talking about. If you're not bold enough to tell me I'm wrong, then we're going to we're going to crash and burn. So, and I think that, strong leaders are bold enough that they, welcome people challenging them on their thought processes and decisions and learn to grow from it. And I think that the people that you're serving learn from that process as well.
Yeah, we all have blind spots. Even, like you said, having people that challenge what your thoughts are um, allows us to see where we couldn't see before.
Right.
And like you said, it's that trust factor, and to believe in people, and that's leadership. You encourage somebody, you know, when you're starting off developing a new leader, you give them small tasks, knowing that there's probably going to be some failure in there, but you know,
Yep.
you weigh that risk factor in, right? You know, you give them tasks that there's, you know, that there's a possibility they're going to fail, and but it's not going to impact us in a way that the learning outweighs the incident. And so you know, that's just really really important. um
They gotta find their own style too. Sorry, my voice is going.
yeah,
The way that I lead may not work for you or somebody else. Not everyone can communicate effectively, wearing everything on their heart on their sleeve and putting it all out there. Some people have to be more guarded, um, and find their own style. And I think a lot of it's trial and error. And I think also the more leaders you're exposed to and the research you do, and whether that's reading or listening to podcasts or talking to people. I think I'm learning just talking to you right now, is the way I look at it. I think you pull things from everyone you surround yourself with, and you find things that work for you, and you try things out. And I've tell my leaders all the time, you can't lead everyone the same way as well, right?
yeah,
There's certain people that you know they need a loving pat on the back to support them when they're going through challenging times and that sort of thing. And there's some other people that need a swift kick in the ass when they're down, and that pat on that loving hug or pat on the back, right, whatever,
yeah,
isn't going to work for them. They need a swift kick to kind of say, you're better than that. You're better than that, and go do it. And I know you're better than that. And I think, again, it's building relationships and communicating, outcomes, that sort
yeah,
of thing, get you to the end result.
yeah. You also mentioned earlier serving your leaders, uh and that's servant leadership, right? I mean, you work for them. It's like you have a vision of where you want your team to go, and they understand that vision, and then you're there to help when they come to you where there's
Yep.
obstacles that are beyond their control,
Yep.
because that's part of it too. I mean, sometimes people come to you, or sometimes I have obstacles in my way that are within my control, and I've got to figure out how to navigate through that. And sometimes I have obstacles that come my way that's like, this one's for my boss. I've got to go to my leader and say I need some help. And
Yep.
I think that that's a huge part of it, is not being able to, they're not thinking that, you know, you're totally in control and you have all the answers. It's also asking for help and that sort of thing. um
Yep.
yeah, really good stuff.
And I've gotten things at work where I know I'm about to go to battle on something, and I know it's going to get dragged out over a long while. And I will go to my leaders and say, how far you want me to push this? Because if I'm going to push this to the end with other departments or clients or whatever, do you want me to keep pushing, or at the end of the day, are we just going to give in and do it anyways? And I'm wasting my time and energy with all of this. So I think, when you see those things come, and do that outreach to your leaders and kind of get their input, because there's no reason, if they're not going to back you in at the end of the day, and it's just something you're not going to win, you know, go ahead and change that mindset and start going another way and figure out how you're going to make it happen with what you got.
No, that's absolutely, because you're running a, you know, and not you specifically, but in leadership, when you're running a department or an area of folks, and you have to, you know, that eventually what your team is doing is going to bleed over into other teams, and if the messaging is different with those other teams, that's when
Yep.
things start to kind of stop. And so it's having the, you know, the courage to go to your leader and say, okay, here's the vision, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. And you know, and I say the same page, and that leads me to something that I've really been thinking about a lot lately, and it's our energy. I talk about love, and love is an energy that drives us. And when I think of energy and being on a frequency, that's when you have focus point, that's when things have that fluidity. Okay. And when you have fluid motion, then in less resistance, then that's when things really start to happen. And whether it's an engine that's well tuned with oil and gas and air mixture, combustion, all that stuff. When you have fluidity, so I think about uh, these TV networks. Like, let's just say Netflix, right? So Netflix puts a signal out, and it's out there. If you want to hear or be a part of or experience Netflix, you have to literally change your station on your TV. Your receiver has to be tuned to Netflix in order to watch Netflix. You can't
Right.
watch Netflix if you're tuned to ESPN. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
So to get everybody tuned in to the same channel, the same frequency, then that's when things start to flow. If you've got somebody on your team that is just adamant about watching a basketball game when the goal is to watch this
Netflix. Yep.
rom com or whatever, then so that yeah, so I think, well, that's how life works. That's how television works. That's how the flow of energy works. How do I apply that to my team? And it comes down to being open and having dialogue about what is the goal. The goal isn't to fix that piece of equipment so it operates correctly. The goal is, we work for a for-profit company. The goal is to make money. The goal is to operate with integrity. The goal is to create an experience for our end users so that they not only want to come back and continue to do business with us, but they tell other people about their experience. And so that's the goal. Fixing the piece of equipment is just part of the journey to the goal. And
Mhm.
we fall down, we fail, but sometimes we focus so much on this damn piece of equipment and then that becomes our goal, and we lose sight of the customer experience. We lose sight of operating with integrity. We lose sight of, hey, we're being, and I say being profitable, it's about fairness, right? It's about
Mhm.
market value and all that stuff. I mean, that's just business stuff. But it's keeping people focused on the end result, and knowing that on our journey things are going to happen, and we'll address them as they happen. We'll navigate around them and through them and over them, and but we just got to stay focused on the goal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've talked this year about, being in rhythm, like the energy you're talking about, being in rhythm. And then I am a believer of momentum. I've talked about, how do you get a couple things to go your way early on and then just ride that through as long as possible. And it, one day, might be a fluke, couple days in a row, you got a pattern there. And then two, you got a trend going, you got to ride that trend. Um, and I've told the whole company, and I don't think enough companies do that, enough leaders do that. You really need to celebrate those successes and get in that rhythm, because I think we do get so busy, we don't stop and reflect day to day on what I did that day. What successes did I have that day? Even if it's one, member or customer that you touched. Being in healthcare is very easy. I tell all my new hires that we bring into the organization, you know, not to knock on direct TV or anything else, but I was like, this isn't direct TV where, if something's not working, your customer's missing Judge Judy. With us, if we don't do our job, somebody doesn't get their medicine, their health, they could die, whatever it is. So it is vital. You should have a caring, compassionate heart, because imagine that's your mom or your grandma or your wife, It's that important. And if you look at those successes where you help somebody get their medicine or take care of their health care on that day, that's a successful day. Just one of those. And then if you have multiple of those instances, you really have done something that day. And I think sometimes we don't stop and reflect on those successes and looking at it at that granular level enough, right? There's too many people that come in, they put in their 8 hours and they don't step back and appreciate what they accomplished that day. So
Yeah, I mean, you just said it. We're not successful because we're trying to serve ourselves. We're successful because we're serving others.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep, very much so.
Yep. That's really good stuff. All right, man. I can do some editing here, but
Go ahead.
anything that you want to leave with the listener, some advice that you have or an experience that happened. I know you talked about your knee, and that was great, good, really good stuff. But any closing advice, Scott, for new leaders that are maybe struggling with difficulties on their leadership role, or just to be better versions of themselves?
I think that, again, it comes back to being passionate about what you do. And I have my quote here ready. You've probably I post it every year around this time because of Pat Tillman, and Pat, you know, means the world to me, what he did for this world and what he gave up for this world and the sacrifices he made and that sort of thing. But passion had always meant a lot to me prior to really getting to know who Pat was. But I think you need to be passionate about what you're doing day to day with, the people you serve, your customers you're servicing, the work that you do. You need to be passionate about it. And, that's at work and being a leader, and that carries over to, your home life as well. My kids and my two daughters, my wife, they mean everything to me. I put everything I have in, I try and work, but besides the hours of work I put in, I coached them for 6-7 years as well, and now I got them to the junior high and varsity, or high school levels and sports and that sort of thing. So now I've got free time, so now my wife has me as the athletic booster club president now, so now I've got to carry my leadership and passionate to a whole nother place. But no matter what you step into, be passionate about it, have it mean something to you. And if you're faking it, it comes through. There are people you can tell their heart's just not into it. And when it's that way, they just, you sense it, and you're not going to have any luck getting people to take your lead when your heart and your mind are not into it. And then that quote I mentioned, is passion is what makes life interesting, what ignites our soul, fuels our love and carries our friendships, stimulates our intellect and pushes our limits. A passion for life is contagious and uplifting. Passion cuts both ways. Those that make you feel on top of the world are equally able to turn it upside down. In my life, I want to create passion in my own life. And with those I care for, I want to feel, experience, and live every emotion. I will suffer through the bad for the heights of the good. And I think if you listen to those words and live with that mindset, I think that's everything. That touches me every time I read it.
That was Pat Tillman.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just a fantastic human being.
Us Sun Devils, wear them in our heart every single day. As soon as I'm done here with you, I got to get out and get my 4.2 miles on today.
Awesome.
On my gimpy knees. So yeah, but yeah, he's just amazing human, and just I try to live up to some of the things, his values and that sort of thing, and make sure that his life, his sacrifices are not forgotten. My kids know of Pat very well, and they speak of him at his school. They've done reports and that sort of thing about him. So just
that's awesome.
Yep.
Very cool. Yeah. Scott, you mentioned how leadership carries over to your family and your kids, and that's something I work on every day. Because it's like when I'm at work, it's very process driven, operationally driven, and it's easy for me to get people to think and challenge and inspire. But at home, it's a different dynamic, and even with ourselves. So there's servant leadership, situational leadership at the office, but then there's leadership for yourself, and leadership, like, what do I need to challenge myself to do to become better? I tell people to be better, and encourage them to be better, but encouraging yourself, and
Mhm.
leaning into the unknown. Some things, like you said, you've got a new role that you have been challenged for you, and you've been challenged to do and take on. And so in your community, when in your kids' lives, and that's awesome, because you're stepping into something new for yourself, and you're going to grow from this. And
Yep.
the same thing with our kids. It's like because at work, it's almost like it's a mission, and people are getting paid to do things, yes. But at home, it's like you can't, if your kid totally disagrees with you, you can't fire them.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. You can't fire your kid. No, and they're the ultimate, really, report card of
Yeah,
who you are as a human being, right?
yeah, yeah,
Everyone sees your kids and that sort of thing, and
yeah,
like I said, my wife being in education, my friends and all that, they are so limited nowadays on what they can do with kids, and how they discipline and hold them accountable, whether it's attendance or grades or whatever it is. And you're almost at a loss, like, how do you man I think back in the things have changed. Back in our day, we had three forces going. If we stepped out of line, really, we had three forces going against us. At least those that played sports had three forces going against us. If And I never got in trouble, but I was always afraid to, because I knew I was going to get it from my parent. I knew I was going to get it from my coaches, and I knew I was going to get it from the teacher. And nowadays, I think, I don't know where it's coming from at all times, right? The parents sometimes are not there because they're working, and I think the television is raising the kids. I think the teachers are afraid to do anything nowadays. They're somewhat
yeah.
hand tied, and I think coaches still. My Some of my best friends in life are coaches or work coach and that sort of thing, and I've seen the impact they make on their kids' lives, and sports does play a huge part in discipline and leadership and that sort of thing. I think you still instill so many values through sports and that sort of thing. But I think a lot of our shortcomings nowadays, some of the things that we see that are troubling out in the news and that sort of thing, just come from you know where are the parents, and what are they doing, and what
Yeah.
values are they driving, and again, whether you're Christian, non-Christian, what
Yeah.
values do you follow, and are you driving those across your family and that sort of thing? Do you know where they are at night, that sort of thing? And we just got, as a society and that sort of thing, we've got to take more ownership of what's going on with our children, that sort of thing. Because again, I believe they're as humans, they're our ultimate report card, is how we lived our lives, right? Are they living the values that you instilled with them? Are they making good decisions, that sort of thing? And are they, representing you and themselves in a manner that you would be proud of?
That's awesome. Yeah. Leadership and parenting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that I have the answers on either of, but we are very fortunate to have, two outstanding girls that we couldn't be any prouder of. And just, I think a lot of it, my dad, we're probably extending our time. So, but,
Yeah.
my dad, he was my role model up until 12, and I've learned as I've grown older, it's two factions. I think one is the person he was, where he drove me, he much like your parents, you could do anything you put your mind to. If somebody's out there doing it, you can do it. My dad kind of instilled the same thing. He's an army guy and that sort of thing. He drove me to be the best. I would come home was straight A's on my report card. And the question out of his mouth would be, is that the best you could do? And I was like, yeah, that's actually the best you could do, Dad. But he would push and push and push and push and push. And everyone loved him, but he never really communicated at an emotional level and love and that sort of thing. I don't know if that's, his dad died when he was early at 16. He didn't really connect and that sort of thing with his kids. Everyone loved him, and he had this persona of being the most likable guy in the room, and he was in sales and that sort of thing. And I was like, I was not born with that sales gene. I couldn't sell anybody anything. But now I kind of see, I kind of do sell. I'm selling people that they can be successful. And, I think part of leadership is, you're selling a belief in the individuals that you're serving, that you're managing, that sort of thing. If you can get people to buy that, then, they have a chance to be successful, and your organization has a chance to be successful.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. About the parenting thing, it's struggling with being a parent, and especially with your first child, because you're figuring it out as you're going, right? You don't want them to know that, but you're figuring it
That's
out.
true.
And I was so good at managing clients, not giving clients what they wanted, but managing it and helping come to an understanding with my clients, and really creating an authentic partnership in that. And one day I was talking to another leader, and we were talking about our kids, and I was struggling. And he said to me, treat your son like your number one client. And I just went, whoa. And,
Yep.
So you try to just, and that's all we can do is try. We work towards things, we make steps towards things, and we navigate things, and, you do the best you can.
Oh yeah.
And the other day I was talking to a lady that her daughter and my son are very close. And she said to me, you raised a really good young man. And that's when it hit me, that
Yeah.
I'm doing my job.
Biggest compliments you can get right there. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And the other thing about parenting, right? You can do it the exact same way for your kids, and they're going to do different things because they're human and they've got their own experiences. And, I did everything with my oldest this way, and she turned out this way. And I did the same thing with my youngest, but she has an opposite reaction to it. So you gotta learn, I guess, what's going to move them as individuals, and that sort of thing. So, and it's all trial and error, like you said, and there's no handbook, no perfect answers for any of it. All those parenting books kind of make me laugh, because there's some good stuff in there, but again, when you're talking about individual human beings, you've got to kind of adapt style and effort and presence based on who you're dealing with.
Yep. Well, Scott, I have really enjoyed our conversation today. It's been an honor to have you and to talk about life, talk about leadership, talk about parenting. So I really appreciate your time.
I loved it. I'm honored and that you considered me, and I appreciate the podcast. Again, I spent a lot of time yet listening to it, so it's been a blast getting to reconnect with you and that sort of thing. So I really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right.